All right, we're going to do a fly that's going to have some different significance depending on probably where you're from. My handle on Instagram is adkflytying for the Adirondacks. So in my neck of the woods, this is an unbelievably well-known pattern by an unbelievably well-known fly tyer and shop owner, Fran. This is going to be the haystack. This is what we're going to have when we're done. The haystack is one of a line of flies designed and tied by Fran, who owned a fly shop in the Adirondacks. Pretty well known in this area. There's also people outside of the Adirondacks that know him very well. But if you're around here in fly fish, you definitely know who Fran is. I had the pleasure of meeting him many, many years ago, but I feel bad even saying that because, you know, when I met him, I was much, much younger. And I didn't really appreciate, you know, the conversation that I had and who I was meeting. To me, at the time, I was just stopping in a fly shop. You know, that was the extent of it. So a little bit of a bummer there, but he was a great guy. Not that I knew him too well, but excellent fly tyer. He used particular colors that seem to really work well in the Adirondacks, and I've modeled a lot of what I do around some of his ideas. So this is going to be a cool tie. In the vise is just a standard size 14 dry fly hook. You can tie this on a variety of different hooks. I've got UTC 70 and burnt orange. Doesn't really matter. I mean, you know, you can use a flat thread, a round thread. Really, I don't think it matters. The actual pattern itself calls for a thread called fire orange. I have a fluorescent orange and a burnt orange, but I don't have the fire here with me, but this is about as close as you're going to get to it as it is. So the first thing you want to do is you definitely want to lay down a thread base. And the reason why I want to lay down a thread base is because this fly, even though it seems very simple and straightforward, and to some extent it kind of is, you can run into some pretty serious problems if you skip a couple of things. You're going to be dealing with some bulky deer hair. So if you don't put down this thread base, and you're just putting it on the bare shank, you're going to get a lot of spinning. You're going to get, it's going to be a lot harder to control the hair. So the first thing I want to point out, the first material we're going to tie in is the wing. And this is going to be a patch of what is known as comparadun hair. And comparadun hair has very, very, I don't know if you can see it here, very thin points to them. It's like short, fine deer hair, but then the body of the hair opens right up. It's nice and thick and hollow and splays out nicely. Now, I want to be very clear about this. This fly can be pretty easy to tie, but it can also be very difficult because you're dealing with a lot of bulk. But one thing is for sure, you got to make sure you use the right kind of hair, and that's going to be comparadun hair. If you use short, fine hair, or anything else, you can run into all kinds of different problems, especially with the short fine hair, because it just doesn't clamp down as much as the comparadun hair. So you got to be real careful with that. I think if you don't have comparadun hair, regular body hair is probably going to be your next best bet, but the points are a little bit thicker. You're not going to get the same look. So really try to get yourself some comparadun hair. So I got a chunk here, just giving this a quick stack. And I'm going to pull it out of my stacker backwards. And what I mean by that is I'm going to use my right hand to hold the stacker, pull the tube out with my left so that all of my points are facing forward. And I'm just going to kind of tease out any crap or anything you might have in here. So now that I've got my clump, that's about how much you're going to want. I'm going to measure the length. And I want a little bit longer than that, so I'm just going to really, really clamp down with a tight grip as I transfer that hair from one hand to the other, and that's going to be about good right there. So I'm going to twist my thread counterclockwise, because what I'm going to want is I'm going to want my thread to want to kind of bend towards the back of the fly, and I'm going to get 2 loose wraps. Then we're going to tighten that up as much as we can. And while holding on to the clump, get a few really tight wraps to make sure that's not going anywhere. Don't let go of the deer hair. Not that it's a huge problem, but it's a lot easier if you just slip your scissors right in there and just snip off as much of that as you can in one shot. And you're going to have to do a little bit of cleanup. Now, one thing you got to notice I'm not tapering it down like I normally would over the whole body. And the reason why is because we're going to tie in a deer hair tail as well. And if I'm tapering it down to the body, that's just a lot of material and the fly is going to have way too much bulk. So I'm going to kind of taper this a little bit differently. And the first step of doing that is to push my tips down, slip my scissors in, and just give a tapered cut like that to get rid of as much of that bulk as you can. Now here's a key step. This is a step that can really annoy the crap out of you because this is where the hair can really start to spin on you, which it just did a little bit there. Is if I start winding down nice and with real tight wraps, it's just going to start spinning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross my thread over and focus a little bit more on securing these butt ends here. And then I'm going to work my way back up. Because if all of that stuff is secure, when I work my way up, then I can wrench down and really tie that in nice and tight without everything spinning on me. And like I said in the beginning about the difficulty of this fly, this isn't really a tough fly to tie, but I will tell you it can be. And what can make it tough is if you have a hard time working with that deer hair and it's spinning on you and doing all kinds of stuff, it can create a little bit of an issue. Okay, next order of business, we're going to tie in our tail. So I got the same type of hair, just a much smaller clump. Get a little stack going there. I'm going to pull that out. This patch of hair is not really the best quality patch. So what can happen, you can't see it here because it's on the back end, but I got a butt end mixed in here. And I want to try to just pull that out. Not that it's a huge deal. All right, there we go. But sometimes you get those. So we're going to take our tail feathers here, and we're going to line it up, size it, and right about there is about the length I want. So transfer your grip over to your left hand. Get a loose wrap to gather everything, and then we're going to pinch right down and get a couple of really tight wraps to get that secured. And hang right onto it to keep the points out of the way while we slip our scissors in and get a bunch of that cut out of there. Okay, we'll twist that, see what's left to cut. Once you get the bulk of it out of there, you're going to have to just come back in here and clean that up a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know if you tie comparaduns or not, but this really is kind of really just a take on the comparadun, but it's got some variations. And the usage of the deer hair tail makes it a little different too. I got one rogue fiber here that I gotta snip out of there. There we go. All right, certainly doesn't look like a whole hell of a lot right now, but we're going to go in and we're going to kind of clean that up a little. So I'm going to take all these fibers, I'm going to gather them, pull them towards the back as I get a couple of wraps on there to kind of get everything in order. And let's just go up the body, secure all those butt ends, and try to develop as smooth a tapered body as we can. You don't really need to worry about the underbody on this fly too much. It's going to be ugly as can be no matter what you do because of how much hair you're tying in. All you're going to do is you're just going to fill in the imperfections with the dubbing. And on that note, this is the dubbing that I'm using. I've got Ruff's Australian Possum. You got Betters right there. I got to be honest with you, I don't know where I got this dubbing. If anybody has a bag of actual Fran Betters dubbing that he sold in his shop, that's something that is, very in high demand. If you have something like that, you're in possession of something pretty cool there. I think that's what this might be, but I'm really not 100% sure. But whether it's the actual real stuff or not, either way, it's good stuff. It's Australian Possum dyed in this kind of unique rusty color. kind of a staple color, the Adirondacks. This rusty color, man, I'll tell you, you throw anything in the Adirondacks of this color, you're going to catch fish. Not quite sure what the reasoning for that is, but dry flies, nymphs, you name it. One of my top steelhead flies is a rusty brown stonefly. And the only reason why I even have it or tied it is because I tied it in that rusty brown to bring in fish in the Adirondacks, because you tie rusty brown in the Adirondacks, you're going to catch fish. And thus the rusty stonefly was born, and I use it for steelhead now. But I'm just going to go ahead and get a dubbing noodle on here. The lower part of the dubbing noodle, I'll do it a little bit tighter, because I want to use the dubbing to kind of tame everything and get everything in order here. But as you go up towards the front part of the fly, don't be afraid to let it get a little bit messy. The sample that I showed you in the beginning of the video, you kind of see how messy that was. That's definitely welcomed with this fly. So now we're just going to run our dubbing up at a nice taper. Don't be afraid to let it have a little bit of bulk. A lot of these Adirondack dry flies have a little bit more bulk than some of the dry flies you're probably used to seeing. Like if you look at an Au Sable wolf and a lot of those types of patterns, they're a lot bulkier. And the reason for that is they just have a little bit more material to them to handle the pocket water you tend to see in the Adirondacks. So these flies are definitely tied a little differently. You know, you see different variations of things from all over the country. That's kind of the Adirondack staple. So we're going to get that built up. And once we get all of that filled in, now I'm going to come back to the wing. I'm going to make sure I got an even split here on both sides of the eye. And I'm going to fold everything back. And I'm going to build up some dubbing directly behind that deer hair. I can only put so much on the thread because I'm going to hit my light if I make my dubbing noodle too much longer than I've been making it. So that's why I have to keep stopping and reapplying. All right, my tail is good. I'm going to come up here and fill that in a little bit more. Remember, as I said before, yes, it's going to be a little bit bulkier than you're probably used to seeing, but that's how we do things here. You know, if you fish the Au Sable and some of these mountain pocket streams, you know, you get some heavy water there, and you'll be thankful that you have the extra material. And a lot of times, you know, like in the Delaware, you get those long flats, and fish have a chance to actually like look at, study your fly. A little different in the Adirondacks. You know, they're going to come down, fish has a quick second, they see, oh, looks like a food item, they're going to grab it. So the extra material is definitely something you're going to want to do. And when you're done leveling all that out, bring that to the front, and let's get a whip finish on there. If you're a head cement guy, you're more than welcome to throw some of that on there, get it secured, but a couple of good whip finishes on there, and that fly it ain't going anywhere. Let's come up, snip that out. Kind of tease everything around where we want it to be. Haystack sometimes has that little bit of a forward bend on the wing, kind of towards the front of the fly, but that is pretty much it. This is a classic Adirondack dry fly. This is your Fran Better's haystack. Wing nice and evenly distributed. You got a lot of material on there. This thing's going to float nicely. It's going to handle pocket water nicely. Fantastic fly. Like I said, if you're from my area, it's a fly you know very well. It's a fly tyer you know very well, and quite possibly a human you know very well. As I said before, I won't claim to have known him very well. I've had a couple of conversations with him that I wish I appreciated more because I was a little younger, but there's some guys out there probably watching this video that maybe knew him a little bit better. If you did, throw your experiences with him up in the comments. I'd love to read them. I'm a big fan of the local lore and the local history and everything regarding the Adirondacks and fly fishing. So I would love to hear anybody's experience with Fran Betters. He's been gone for a little over a decade now, but for the people that I've talked to that have known him better than me, never had anything but great things to say about him. Sounds like he was a great guy and definitely a big loss in the area. So this is one of his original flies. I did it in a little bit of a different color. I think the original called for Adam's Gray, but you can do it in a variety of colors. Fantastic fly and fun to tie and use in the area, especially when you consider its origins. It's nice to fish patterns that originated in the area that you're in. So pretty cool thing. So questions or anything on the fly, throw them up. Any questions or comments or anything on Fran, add those as well. I'd love to see them. And that is your haystack. Pretty classic dry fly for the area.